Good morning. This is Greg with the Hard Knock State. This is the third attempt here at our third episode this morning for morning money motivation. We've had some technical difficulties, went through a full episode, and for some reason the sound just wasn't connecting and there was no indicator. So we're trying just the uh, different microphone altogether. Maybe that will work the second time. It looked like there was some type of connection issue, but hopefully the third time's the charm. And I know it will be. Looks like everything's going as planned. So my name again is Greg. I'm a sales coach, sales trainer. I own a company called The Hard Knock State up here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a Grant Cardone licensee, and I've been certified by Grant's team to deliver 10x sales coaching, sales training material. And this coming up Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It's February 11th. I have my phone sales mastery live interactive boot camp. And you can go to thehardknockstate.com and you can get your ticket. It's a free event. It's a half-day workshop where we'll be going over Grant Cardone's proven successful phone selling strategies. And this material helped get me excellent on the phone. And I believe most of us are extremely good face to face, where the majority of us could know how to do a proper greeting and take the customer through our perfect sales process and get a proposal in front of our guest, our customer. Yeah, 100% of the time, or the majority of the time. And I believe that to be true. But where we fail is on the telephone. And 48%, the statistic is 48% of salespeople don't make one follow up phone call. And another staggering statistic is something like 72% of those people don't make it past the third attempt. And simply because they just don't know what to say. They don't have the knowledge. They've said their one or two word tracks, and they just can't get any further momentum or traction behind them. Well, that's what the Hard Knock State is all about. We're being a sales coaching, sales training company. We are about helping you, if you are in sales, reach higher levels in your selling career. It's my mission from now until throughout the end of my career that my goal is to help 10 million people live a successful life through a rewarding career in sales. And I don't believe that there's any better material to learn from than Grant Cardone's material. It was about 10 years ago. I remember I was walking into a sales meeting while looking at my paycheck, and I sat down in my chair, opened my paycheck up, and my face just turned bright red. I was horrified. And I remember I was thinking about my kids. I was thinking about how I was going to keep the lights on. I was thinking about how I was going to keep my job. And then I heard it. I remember it clear as day. I was being called out by the sales manager to tell everybody in the department how many sales I had out for the month, or realistically, more like didn't have. And I was embarrassed. I was demotivated, and my performance for the rest of the weekend was shot. The worst part about that day is when I got home, my wife at the time greeted me at the door, told me that our water had been turned off. And so if that story sounds familiar, if you're a sales associate or just struggling months, you have two, and phone mastery workshop at thehardknockstate.com. Get this information. It will give you the confidence because you have the knowledge, you've gained the knowledge, have the confidence to pick up the phone. The reality is the phone is a piece of plastic with wires, or if it's your office phone, if it's your cell phone, it's a chunk of metal with some glass and some technology inside, right? It doesn't do anything until we give it a command to do something. And so it's us on the phone that works the phones. And the only bad call you can make is the one you don't make. And it all starts with picking up the phone and dialing. So let's talk about some facts about the telephone. Grant has some facts. And speaking of Grant, it wasn't shortly after that day when I walked into the sales meeting. It was probably a week or two after that. I remember I was consulting with a coworker of mine who had not been in sales for as many years as I had, and he was seeing some just some really good results. And so I asked him what he was doing differently. He turned me on to an author, a sales trainer who had written a book. So I got an audio book, and then I got another audio book, and that turned into four. And then I was listening to those on a constant loop over and over and over again. And then I started going to online webinars they were putting on, and I started really just getting involved and learning new things I had never learned before, and a lot of it I was familiar with, but the actual process, I was figuring out that there was an actual process to go about this career called sales, this industry that I was in. And there was a process for being on the phone. There was a process for greeting the customer. There's a process for finding the right product for the customer. And there's a process for closing the customer. And why selling is different than closing, because they are two completely different things. And I never knew that. But until I gained this knowledge and started applying this information, then my sales started increasing, and it was on a vertical incline. And at the end of the year, I was tapped on the shoulder and I was congratulated for finishing the store as one of the top producers. And it wasn't shortly long after that, 6 months later after that, I was promoted into sales management, where I was teaching and coaching and training other sales associates how to be extremely good on the phone. And this material alone will set you apart from your competition. And so the facts of the telephone was first invented to save people time. An average person makes 8 calls a day, or 250 calls per month. There are 3 billion phone calls made in the USA every single day. There are more mobile phones, no surprise, than there are fixed lines. 92% of consumers use phones to inquire about a purchase. Now that's an eye-opening number. 92% of people use the telephone to inquire about a purchase, and 85% of the people claim that they are dissatisfied on the phone call. 85%. So there's work to do. Good news is that your competition is you just polishing some skills, you'll be that much further ahead. And so I got to tell you, getting good on the phone will make the difference. It will make the difference in your numbers. It will make the difference in your closing ratio. It will make the difference in your appointment show rate. It will make the difference in your overall income. And if we can just get everybody to sell between 3 and 6 more units per month, it will be a lifestyle change for everybody. But the reason why we hate the telephones, here's 6 good reasons. One, and it's the same type of philosophy as something like this. Grant always says everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to have 6-pack abs, right? But nobody wants to put in the work and the time to get those 6-pack abs. Everybody wants to be the boss, but nobody ever wants to go out and venture out on their own. Everybody wants to be a millionaire, but nobody wants to part with $1,000 to improve for self and professional development. That is the most valuable investment you can make is the investment in yourself. Another reason why you may hate the telephone is because you're good at adding but bad at multiplying. And with Grant, he always says, do the math. Most people don't value your time is a belief. The types of phone calls you have out there is we have the call, we have the warm call. Let me pull this up here. We have the hot call, we have the inbound call, we have the outbound call. We have the outbound ad response call. We have the outbound lead response call. We have outbound referral calls, and we have door-to-door calls. What is the cold call, the defined? Well, essentially, it's the solicitation of business from potential customers who are not anticipating an interaction. Cold calling is a technique where sales people, technicians, service people, contracts individuals or businesses who have not previously expressed an interest in the product or services being offered. Cold calling typically refers to phone calls, but also entails drop-in visits, such as door-to-door sales. Grant has a quote here. He says, "The beast makes cold calls, while the excuse makers scream and cry." And that is so true. What is a warm call defined? Well, a warm call refers to calling a prospect with who you've had some prior connection between yourself and this prospect. They maybe have already come by the store, the showroom, or your office. Maybe they've inquired about it in person. Maybe it was a lead, an internet lead via some advertising your company does to drive traffic into the store to get the phones ringing. These calls could come from industry events, previous sales calls, could be referrals, could be appointments, again, could be an internet lead or a response to an ad. Grant also says the obscurity is the single biggest threat to your business. Get everywhere you can, and making a phone call is getting your name out there. If you're selling a certain product or service and you're in a highly competitive line, the best thing you could do is make phone calls. You want to keep your name if you've engaged with these people, or if you're the leader. You want to be the leader in your industry. Make the phone call, get your name out there. Make your name associated with the product, so when the people think of the product or the service, you're the first person they think of when they pick up the phone. Here's a warning about warm calls. I have personally made what was defined as a warm call whom agreed to a solid appointment where the decision maker knew nothing about me or why I was there, resulting in me having to handle this call as a cold call. And so if you're in any doubt about the temperature of the call, Grant says treat it like a cold call and start over. Just start over as if it's a cold call. What is the hot call defined? A prospect has called, or essentially they've raised their hand and said, "I want that product, sign me up now." And they called to just schedule a time to come in to the office, come into the showroom, come into your store, meet with you so they can make their purchase and go home and put it to good use. Who makes cold calls out there? Well, who are the type of businesses or organization? Who are the people that are making cold calls out there? Because when we think cold call, all we do is our head goes to some kind of call center room where there's all these people sitting on headsets, telemarketing, robocalls, that kind of stuff. But the reality is, they make cold calls. Sales organizations make cold calls. Direct marketing and network marketing groups make cold calls. People in the job search industry, either those looking for employment or those looking to hire people, make cold calls. Investors and technology people make phone calls. All sorts of agents, entertainment agents, sports agents, celebrity agents, PR agents, promoters, deal makers, real estate industry people, brokers, sellers, buyers, syndicators, investment fund people, fundraisers, professional communities, people in your banks, lawyers, accountants, politicians, they all make cold calls. Even doctors, chiropractors, dentists, salon practitioners, they make cold calls. Service industry people, landscapers, roofers, plumbers, contractors, they make phone uh, calls. So your success motto should be those willing to do the things others won't do, create the life that they want, but don't have that yet. And that's a success motto and a quote from GC himself. So let's talk about the cold call a little bit. Okay, the cold call is the willingness to call those not yet somebody you don't yet know. Okay, it's one of the great traits of a highly successful entrepreneur and highly successful business people, willing to contact and get meetings with people they don't even know, and where they have not even gotten yet. The benefits of making a cold call, it's very cost effective. It's 6 times more cost effective than direct mail or advertising. It saves times. It preempts and dominates the competition. Uh, and that is just making calls, just getting good on the phone will completely separate you from your entire competition. And if you're a sales professional and you're working on a sales team, I guarantee you getting good on the phone call will not only separate you from the guy down the street, but it will also separate you from competing with the other sales associates or professionals within your organization. It identifies and creates business opportunities. You can crash through obscurity with making phone calls, cold calls. You establish new relationships and it empowers you. It gives you a little bit more courage. Here's a little bit of the cost benefits of making the cold call. Average cost of a customer contacting uh, average cost of customer contact using a telephone to make a sales call is $33.11. The average cost of a field sales call is $276.48 per call. And so that is a big difference. So you can see how effective, cost effective making cold calls is. The fact is, the first caller gets 50% of the market, and the last caller gets the other 50%. And so, what's the rule to this? What's uh, the reality is be the first to call and be the last to call, because then you can get both halves of that business. So always of making cold calls, Grant has his always be honest and transparent and straightforward. Always be interesting and be interested. Uh, Always believe you can make the sale on every call. So true. We have to assume the sale. We have to look and maximize every sales opportunity. We always have to identify and solve problems. We always have to be logical and structured. Always have to be respectful. We always have to be enthusiastic. We always have to be memorable. We always have to be entertaining. We always have to be credible using third party information. The primary purpose of the cold call is simply to close a sale, to make a deal. The second purpose of making the phone call is to identify decision makers, to identify influencers, to determine what is needed, to create interest in your product or service, to get an appointment, and to get information to follow up with for a future sale, to move the call from a cold call to a warm call, and to add clients and customers to your pipeline. How do we prepare for the cold call? Well, as Grant always says, do the math. And so and we'll talk about, go over, just discuss briefly Grant's call calculations. The second thing we need to do is we need to build a list. And the third thing we need to do is research and investigate that list. We need to look for any kind of personal connections we have to the person who's calling. Maybe somebody who worked for that individual, maybe somehow there may be some relation or some connection, somehow, some way to the person you're calling. We also have to, when we're preparing, we have to build a script and follow the script. Okay. If you've listened to any of my videos, live streams in the past, you know most sales scripts out there are designed for the benefit of the management first and the customer second. And we need to build a script and follow a script that's designed for our customer first, to satisfy the needs of the customer first and us second. Second thing we need to do when we prepare for the cold call is we need to anticipate objection. The next thing we need to do is we need to get calling. And then while we're calling and we're on the phone with our prospective clients, our prospective customers, we need to take good notes. The call, we need to take those notes from the notepad and we need to put them right into the CRM. And the next thing we start doing after that is we start our follow-up process from that cold call. So Grant's call calculations, let's say you have a desired income of $344,000. We take our average sale, okay? We divide our commission from our per sale, our average, divide that by the $344,000. That means we're going to need 344 sales, okay? Then we figure out what our closing rate is. Let's say it's 6%. We divide that by the number of contacts and divide the number of contacts by the days worked. That would mean we would need to make a total of 19 contacts, 19.11 actually, 19.11 contacts. And then if we figure in Grant's 10x rule on top of that, that would mean, because we always have to put in 10 times the effort necessary in order to hit our number. So by doing that, we would need to make 191 calls a day to get 19.11 contacts. And so let's define a contact. What is a contact? Talk to the decision maker. So when we're making a phone call, we always want to try to get the decision maker on the phone at any time possible. However, the decision maker also has influencers around them. So by talking to an influencer or making a good impression on the influencer and or the gatekeeper, we can get our message delivered in front of the right people. So one, we want to try to talk to the decision maker. Two, we want to leave a voice message with the decision maker if we can't get them on the phone. Number three, speak to the gatekeeper or leave a message with the gatekeeper, or speak to the influencer in an organization. If we can't speak to them, then we want to leave a message with the influencer in the organization. So call the decision maker, can't get a hold of the decision maker, we leave a message for the decision maker. Then we ask well, I guess you wouldn't ask for the gatekeeper, but who's right underneath them, leave a message for them and who's underneath them. You can multiply, you can make 3 calls literally with 1 call if you do that. And so, hey, look, on February 11th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we are going to go into detail, so much detail about making phone calls. It's our half-day phone sales mastery workshop. It's a virtual live event, and we're going to teach you how to take we're going to teach you all the different types of calls, how to handle the different types of calls. We're going to teach you how to take, if you work in a store, a showroom, or an office where you sell products and services, and customers have to come to you to purchase that product or service, pretty much any retail commission outfit out there. We're going to teach you how to take an inbound phone call, treat it as a sales call, be able to provide enough information to that caller to satisfy their needs, to schedule a time to come in and see you, We're going to teach you how to have the customer lock in and commit to their own appointment, which will increase your appointment show rate, which in return will increase your closing rate, which in return will increase your overall paycheck and your income. And if we can get everybody to sell 3 to 6 more units per month, I got to believe it's an instant lifestyle change for everybody. The goal is to make the percentage of people, 76% of US Americans live paycheck to paycheck. My goal is to get that shrunken way down. And so I know that it could be done through a rewarding career in sales. I know we could be successful, and we can have whatever it is we want. Once we get extremely good in sales, we can write our own ticket. We can go anywhere and create our own economy, and we can thrive just by getting good on the phone. We can thrive in a good economy. We can thrive in a down economy, because we know how to effectively communicate with other people to solve a problem that they're having. So February 11th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, go to thehardknockstate.com. It's a free ticket. Scroll right below the banner, follow the directions on how to get your free ticket. If you want to upgrade for $19.95 to the VIP package, you're going to get 30 days of my weekly sales group coaching sessions. That's 4 individual sessions. They're 45 minutes long. And in addition to that, you'll get 2 of my classy contract closing pens. These are a fine tip metal ballpoint pen. They're not a cheap plastic pen. They got a nice weight to them. I looked at hundreds of pens before I selected these. They have a stylus on the top. So if you close on a touch screen or a tablet, the pen will still be useful and beneficial to you. So that is February 11th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. It's the phone sales mastery class. Now let's talk about building a list real quick. I'll give you some information to where you can use this today when you start calling and contacting your customers, or trying to build your list of who you're going to call, who you're going to contact, who may have a use for the product or service that you provide. So number one area, probably the most probably profitable area where you can start mining, is your sold customers. Okay. Sold customers that you've done business with, touch bases with them. Hey, if they're not ready, try to find out where they're at in their buying cycle. And if they're not ready yet, stay in touch with them and keep your relationship going, and ask them if there's anything you could do to service their product that they have until they're ready for a replacement. So sold customers, absolute gold mine. You'll never waste your time making a phone call to a sold customer. The next customers you could put on your list are customers that are actively servicing their product with you or your company, if you have a service department. The next person you could put on your list is lost customers. Okay, or you can also put on their orphaned customers. Customers, people who have done business, and orphan customers, people who have done business with your organization, but no longer have a salesperson attached to that account. So the salesperson who sold that customer a product or service has moved on. They've gone to another career, different job. So there's nobody there to take care of the customer. The sixth person groups of people we could put on our call list is move outward. You just try to get our name. Who are the other places, organizations outside of your circle of influence, maybe around your organization? And we could just start moving our parameter, our circle away from us. You could always start focusing within your 10-mile radius and then move it out from there. So who are other organizations who would have a use for your business or product? The seventh thing we could do is we could add referrals to that list. eighth thing, and where do we get referrals? The easiest way to get a referral is from somebody who's done business with us. So that would, again, you refer back to number one. And then once you call those people, the sold customers, and ask them, who do you know who's in the market for a product or service like this, right? The eighth thing we could do is a buy list. So you can buy a list through like places like US Data Corporation, uh, Data Axle Genie, Go Leads. You can social media groups that you're a part of. You can put those people on your list. Before we need to check our okay, so we need to have the right attitude when we make our phone call. So number one is we got to believe you can sell anyone your product or service. Number two, you got to believe that your product or service is worth 10 times its value. Number three, you got to be willing to call back the customer or the potential prospect until they die from I mean pretty much, right, until they buy or die. Even when they buy, we still want to keep calling them to follow up and servicing their product. Number four, you got to know your pitch cold. Okay, you got to know it like the back of your hand, and the way to do that is to practice, drill, and rehearse. Read your script, practice with a associate sitting next to you, and run through that script until you got it down to where you could pick up the phone and make the call. And remember, with your attitude, you got everything to gain and nothing to lose. And believe that you are the lowest price out there. You have to believe and be committed to this as a true fact, that no matter what the price of the product is, the price of your product or service, no matter what it is, you are the lowest price because it offers the greatest value. And that is key. Believe you are the lowest price because you offer the greatest value. And treat everybody respectfully. Remember, treat everybody, and never depend on making one phone call. When you sit down to make a phone call, block out a period of time, a chunk of time, whether it's 30 or 40 minutes, and try to make 30 or 40 phone calls. Try to make as many phone calls as you can in that allotted time. And please go to thehardknockstate.com to get your free phone sales mastery ticket. Just thehardknockstate.com. If you could read the whiteboard, I know with the lights, the studio lights, it makes it kind of hard to see it. There's a little bit of a reflection, but thehardknockstate.com. I'd love to see you there. It's Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And thank you for joining me on the third episode, in our third attempt of the third episode of Morning Money Mindset. And if you tune in this evening, we'll talk to you this evening. Go crush it.